there, welcome to the 20th episode of Under the Radar. I'm stoked to be back. Can't believe I'm now in the 20s. It's pretty exciting. I have a little bit of information on what I'm doing with Slave to Servant. Got a single coming out soon with a video for Never Greener. I'll talk more about that at the end of the episode though, but really stoked about that new video that's going to be dropping soon. In the last couple episodes, I've been talking about bands that were from the Midwest or Chicago area that would frequently play in our, in Chicago and in the surrounding suburbs and area. Bands that really influenced the scene that I came from and the bands that I played with and that were signed to labels before any of the bands that I played with signed to labels. And so, like in the last episode, I covered Alkaline Trio, which had released their record at the time on Vagrant. And then also before that, I covered The Stereo, which is a band on Fueled by Ramen. These were movers and shakers. These were the bands that, at least for me, that shaped a lot of the sound that I carried on as I continued to develop as an artist, and I know that was the case for a lot of bands that I played with. So that being said, in this episode, I'm going to be covering the band Hey Mercedes. And Hey Mercedes was formed out of the ashes of a band called Braid. Now, Braid was a Chicago band that was on Polyvinyl Records, and it was fronted by Bob Nana, and they disbanded, I think it was 2000. I might be wrong, but I think they did their last show at the Metro with like Alkaline Trio and disbanded. And Chris Broach went on to play with the Firebird Band, and then the other three members of Braid became Hey Mercedes in 2000 and recorded an EP, which I have right here. The EP was released on Polyvinyl Records, and Braid was a band that was very math rock mixed with emo, mixed with just indie rock. I don't know how else to really describe them. They definitely had a distinct sound and influenced a lot of bands. However, the only reason I had heard of the band wasn't because of this EP. It was because they had just signed to Vagrant, which is the label that I talked about in the last episode. My buddy was on the street team, and they were on the Vagrant America tour, and this was when Alkaline Trio was on there with that last record that I mentioned from Peter Infirmary. Dashboard Confessional had signed to Vagrant at the time. They were on it. Saves the Day had signed. I think Hot Rod Circuit was on that tour. I mean, it was a powerhouse tour. I remember a lot of my friends going and coming back with shirts. And like I said, my favorite band at the time was Jimmy Eat World. So this is 2001. And Jimmy Eat World had just dropped Bleed American. Now, I liked Bleed American, but I was a much bigger Clarity fan than Bleed American. And when I heard this band, Hey Mercedes, I'd heard that they were playing with Jimmy Eat World, supporting them on Bleed American at the very beginning of the release tour schedule. So I wanted to go see that show. I think it sold out before I could go get tickets, but they had just dropped this record, or were about to drop this record called Everynight Fire Works. So the first EP was released on Polyvinyl, just like their old band Braid, and like another band that I loved on Polyvinyl was called American Football. Great label. This EP really showed a lot of promise of the direction that this band was going to take on. Now, this record, however, they went back to Jay Robbins. So Braid had recorded Frame and Canvas, which was kind of like a pivotal, influential record in the emo scene. I think it was 98 or 99 when that record dropped. It was produced by Jay Robbins, who was from the bands Jawbox and Burning Airlines, which is one of my favorite bands. The production on this record, they had a lot more time. They had more of a budget because they were on Vagrant. So therefore, again, they spent more time on the record. The guitar tones on this record are just some of the best guitar tones I've ever heard recorded, I think. This was, again, 2001. For context and historical musical trivia, this was 10 years after Nirvana's Nevermind came out. And what I was hearing with these, I guess, quote-unquote indie rock emo outfits a lot was different guitar tones that reminded me of Nirvana, like when I would listen somewhere in between In Utero and Nevermind, somewhere in between that, but it just had like that feeling that, I don't know, it grabbed me. And it wasn't as like Blink-182, it wasn't as like pop punk or No Effects or whatever else was kind of like the thing for a while there. It was just a different tone altogether. It was beautiful and ugly at the same time. And this band took whatever Braid was and whatever Bob Nana's vocal approach was prior to Hey Mercedes, and completely, I think, expanded on it in a really marketable, palatable way. Although that's debatable, because I don't think this album really did much for the band, because again, they were writing songs that were fairly mathy. Some of the songs were in 7, some of the songs were in 5/4, some of the songs were 3/4, but they were playing 4/4 beats over them, you know what I'm saying? And it was just very polyrhythmic and out the box, but just beautiful, great lyricism. From the get-go, you can just really hear that almost like post-grunge influence on the opening track, Frowning of a Lifetime. Another song that I loved off this record was in 3/4, and it kind of had, I guess another album at the time that I was listening to was At the Drive-In's Relationship of Command, which was ballin'. And but yeah, this song had a little bit of that vibe, and I would say this album kind of tied in a little bit with that too. But the song A-List Actress. Probably my favorite song on the record, I'd have to say, would be 11 Tier 7. Another great example of the polyrhythmic aspect and math rock influences of this band would be the way that this next song starts off with a palm muting. It almost feels like it's going to be a 4/4 song, but it's actually a 3/4 song. And I remember it always messed with me because I was expecting it to go on just a, like a rock beat, like just a 4/4, but it was actually at 3/4. And what a brilliant song. This song was called Slightest Idea.
Are you all you want? Yes, you are. Now the worst comes out. Oh, who all had that heart? Bless them all, watch them become background. Once into the water. Yes, you are now into the ground. Found out what makes us shudder. Yes, you are alive and turned up so loud. Save your mortal soul. Well, no one has to know. Can we call control?
Now, there are so many more songs that I could list off. I mean, this was 11 tracks in total, and not a single one of these tracks was bad in my opinion. I mean, this was stuck in my car. Now, the ender on this record is just, again, another one of my favorites. What's really cool about this song is that it's in 7, but it ends up at 4/4 at the very end. It's a really cool song, and the guitar, like the picking, the hammer-ons, it almost has like the clean guitars remind me of American football a little bit, but then they distort it and they come in and it's just this, I don't know, it's like polyrhythmic, like Rush or something. It's really, really cool song. It's called Let's Go Blue. So there you have it. If you've never listened to Hey Mercedes, I truly and honestly suggest you check out this record, Everynight Fire Works, and go on Spotify, jam that thing. I mean, I don't know, to me this is the most underrated Vagrant release. Phenomenal record. So, in other news, the Never Greener music video is complete. And not only is it complete, I'm going to be dropping a single on Spotify, on iTunes, on all digital platforms. I think I'm aiming for the second week in October. Now, in the Never Greener video, I will tell you this, it's a very serious song, but I took a more Foo Fighters approach and wrote a very humorous script that I think still resonates from a meaning perspective if you are listening to the juxtaposition of the seriousness of the lyrics, yet the truth of the story in a humorous way. I think that they really complement each other. So looking forward to dropping that soon. Please subscribe to the Slave to Servant YouTube channel if you haven't yet. So yeah, more to come soon. Thanks for your time.